I think that's one of the things that a lot of people forget. When you can go out, you can see practice, you can knick-knack, this, that, patty whack, give a dog a bone. Deshaun Watson is going to turn it on. He always going to find a way to shine when the lights come on.
Last year around this time, I made a video that was actually very similar to the one that I'm making today about how the Browns were better than a lot of people thought, and they proved that last year. They went on a run where they went to the postseason, and I think it's really kind of remarkable what they did considering their situation that they had over a quarterback. Obviously, Deshaun Watson faced a lot of injuries that year, and they played several different quarterbacks. I think they played 5 different quarterbacks. They finally ended up on Joe Flacco, a veteran guy that was able to produce for them at the very end. But he was a gunslinger. He went out being a gunslinger. Obviously, they couldn't beat the C.J. Stroud-led Houston Texans. But if you look at the media's view, if you look at a lot of people's other takes, they are not high on this team at all. A lot of people believe that they're not making the postseason again. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me when you've retained the entire roster pretty much from last year. No big losses. You have still returning the best defense in what was the NFL last year. It was the best defense in the NFL. And then you go on offense, you have a 1,000-yard receiver. You have debatably, we don't know what Nick Chubb will be, even without him. Jerome Ford was really good. If Deontay Foreman gets through that head injury, he's a pretty solid back. But like I said, Nick Chubb, if he's 75% of what he used to be, he's still a really valuable back that you're not mentioning. But a lot of it falls on the quarterback for this team. A lot of it falls on the guy. And I think that's why people in the media, like nobody in the media has them on the Super Bowl bubble. Nobody. And it doesn't make any sense to me. Like this is clearly with the right quarterback play, surely a Super Bowl contender. Surely with the right quarterback play, the roster, if you look around with how in-depth and good it is, they surely should be on the bubble. But that's been the big question is, can you figure out the quarterback? And obviously you have Deshaun Watson, who, in my opinion, is without question, without any question or debate, is the key to them winning the Super Bowl or them having a chance to get to the Super Bowl. And I think a lot of people are quick to just completely dismiss Deshaun Watson. A lot of people are saying that the past 2 years have been too rocky, that he can't get over the scandal that he faced. He can't be a great player anymore. And people forget within the same decade, he led the league in passing. 2020, he led the league in passing on a pretty bad Houston Texan team. He's won playoff games in the past. And I think a lot of people are going to sit and say that it's not the same team. He's not the same guy. He's too rattled. And if you look at where he's played, like to say it's been awful so far, I think is a bit of a reach. And of course, it hasn't been great. Like if you look at the numbers, you're going to be like, oh, it's been bad. But look, I mean, if you look at last year, he only lost one of the games that he played. I think he went like 5-1, 6-1, something like that. He's winning games, and people forget that second half in that game against Baltimore was an incredible performance. He went toe to toe with a team that hadn't been losing in a long time, and they beat him, and because he outplayed Lamar Jackson in the second half of that game. And nobody's going to sit, nobody's going to talk about that. Deshaun Watson's the absolute key. This is a guy that I think could turn it back on. I think a lot of people have given up on him. I haven't yet. I think that without question, he could come back and he could throw for a monstrous amount of yards. It's still possible. You have guys like Njoku is a tight end, just incredibly on the rise, not that old yet. Could have a say to be the best tight end in the NFL if the right quarterback's to come, if the right quarterback is supporting him within his play style. He's just such a big physical tight end, has great speed. Obviously, Amari Cooper, back-to-back 1,000-yard years with not a lot of quarterback play. You have Nick Chubb, who, like I said, I don't know what he's going to be, but at the same time, he's had the injury before when he was in college, and we saw what happened when he came back off that. Guy's a fighter. Guy's a really, really tough player, and I think that he could be at least 75% of himself, and that's all you would need. And you bring in Jerry Jeudy too, who I think was terribly undervalued and used in Denver. And I think if you put it all together, you could have something there. You could have a legitimate at least number 2 there. And people forget Elijah Moore, not a terrible receiver. So he's got an offense around him. They got a great O-line, which is huge. I think that he can come back, and I think he can have a good year. But they're gonna go as far as Deshaun Watson goes. And I think a lot of the backlash that he has is it's tough for him to be the villain, and a lot of people don't like him. I get it. And like I said, what he did scandal wise, it was terrible. And I think there's a lot of people out there that think that he probably shouldn't have another shot in the league. But be that as he may, he got a second shot, as hundreds of thousands of other people do. Nobody's perfect. And like I said, what he did was not a great thing at all. And there's no time to sit here and lecture about that. But he's getting a second opportunity. He's been clean with it so far. I think that's a lot of the pushback that he gets. But if you look at the talent that he had before, if you look at the small bursts of things that he's been able to do, I think that Deshaun Watson can come back, and I think that he can be a solid quarterback for this team. This roster's too good. And like I said, he led the league in passing one year with not the best roster. If he can do it then he can do it now. So I'm excited to see what the Browns do. I think that they have a legitimate shot to crack into that Super Bowl bubble if he can play like the quarterback he used to be, or if he could even be 75% of the quarterback that he once was. It's out there. There's possibilities. You just got to kind of see that there's so many just times where in the past couple of years with this Browns team has just, the roster has looked so good, so put together. The defense, Myles Garrett, you have all these guys, Stefanski kind of finally coming into his own as a head coach, and they just have not been able to figure it out at quarterback. And they went out, they got this guy, they traded the 3 first-round picks, and they paid him all that money. All right, I think that in this year, if you think about it, he hasn't had a full year. If he can stay healthy, I think a good prediction is that he has a solid year. Excited to see what he does, but I haven't given up on Deshaun Watson yet.